Huh. Well, hello, and welcome back to my blank screen here. Let me, in all that 5 minutes, I was running around getting the lighting right and other stuff, and I did not actually get the screen up yet. Anyway, so here we are. We are near the end of the project. And what I'm working on now at this point, oh, by the way, I'm Age O'Neill, and I'm going to be doing some live coding for you today. And if at any point any of this is useful, whether it's the soft skills or the code skills or answering questions, because I am live on YouTube and Twitch right now, and I'll be monitoring the chats for that, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And then and what we're doing is I'm going to continue updating the documentation and then updating some of the tests. So earlier, I had changed some tests from Bash to JavaScript. Let's see, I've got test.sh still here, and then I've got some magiclink.js under the test there. So I'm going to be converting this Bash into JavaScript so that our tests are all in JavaScript. And then there's just a little bit of documentation changes. So I don't think I got everything up to snuff with this first example, but what I'm going to do first of all, let me go ahead and do a fetch and see what branches we have right now. I think I might have made a whip2 branch so that we could compare the difference between a tiny bit of stuff. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of stuff I did off camera. And so I'm going to git pull whip here. I'm going to do a git checkout whip2, do a git pull on that, and then just show you a little bit of a diff. It was minor changes for the most part, nothing too crazy. Whoops. So welcome. I see a couple of people have joined in. Just to let you know, I got the chats open, so feel free to ask a question at any time. Okay, what was it? I'm gonna double check by logging into my other computer and make sure that I don't have local changes there. Well, first, let me just do a git diff between my whip1 and my whip2 branch and see what we got going on. Yeah, I think I also want to take a look. Whoops. We don't need this one anymore. That was a prototype for documentation I was sharing with somebody earlier. So let me go to the Git history here, 39 commits. I'm going to look at just timestamps on these because they're in a, let's see. I've got whip last. Do I have whip last in here? Okay, this is June 21st. And this is June 25th. So I think I do have a couple commits on my other computer that I forgot to push or pushed the wrong place. Because there should have been more than just one commit, because that's the last one that I streamed, and there was just a little bit that I did that I wasn't streaming. Sorry, I'm switching between a bunch of windows. Let me move out of these out of the way, the ones that we're not actively using right now. All right. Okay. Let me get rid of all that. Now I'm going to leave those things up there. Okay, so I've got my other computer in the living room. And let me log in. And see what branch are we on in here. We're also on whip here. Huh. Interesting. Oh, okay, here we are. So I just didn't commit them yet. Okay. Looks like I updated the app.js so that it would actually work with the new documentation style. So basically what I did was I broke up the way the API works a little. So there was this larger options object, and there were a few things I wasn't quite 100% on what to name them. And then it's just a lot of options that could be filled out. So what I did, and I'll show you, well, we'll see in the diff here, or maybe it's in the previous diff, but I just made functions that don't do anything particularly special. So you call the constructor bit here, and instead of passing in everything, there's only 3 things that you pass in now. You pass in the base URL issuer, you pass in the private key for the public private key, and it actually uses the private key for the secret because the private key is a secret. So if you just take the string of the private key, you can use that as a secret. So I was like, okay, I can get rid of one thing there. And then there's the function that does the stuff, that gets the user data to, once you authenticate the user, you grab some data about the user, and that's what that does. And then in the session middleware here, or not session middleware per se, but that's what I'm calling the variable. But there's a dot options. This is not doing anything that this didn't already do. I'm just breaking it out into smaller pieces. There's the .oidc. All it does is just append onto the options object this OIDC object that was being passed in originally anyway. And then same thing with the challenge here. So these things are semi-optional, meaning I expect everybody's going to be using OIDC because Google Sign-In is probably the most important thing that this helps you with, or the most universally important thing that this helps you with. And then the challenge middleware, those are kind of the things that are unique about this. This library is, more modern than some of the other libraries, and it has these things just kind of built in from the get-go. And yeah, and then it returns the router with a call to .router. And I'm debating on whether or not to make that asynchronous, because there are a couple of things that if I make them asynchronous, they're a little bit easier to do. So I'm debating whether or not to actually have this in the v1 API, but I think it's going to be in the v0.9 API that'll get released within the next hour and a half. So, and then just a little bug fix there for if the OIDC is not given. So I'm going to go ahead and add this stuff in, and I'm just going to call it squash me. And I will push it up. And give me a second here. Okay. And I silence when I'm typing my password because it would be trivial for, I guess it's local anyway, so it doesn't matter that much if you know what my local password is. But anyway, it's trivial to run a program that hears the sound of my typing and then reverses what I've been typing. I say trivial because any type of person that would want to do it could do it, not that a person who's not versed in it could do it, but the software exists. It's one of those attack vectors a lot of people don't think about. So usually I have my password or my passphrase for my SSH keys pre-stored. Anyway, so let me get back into the whip branch because I think that was the most correct one. Yeah. Whoops. There we are. And then I just need to continue on with the documentation updates as the first thing. And I'm just going to kind of take another look through here. Okay, we want to be on the whip branch as we look through. Okay, so this is looking a lot better. It's just fewer things to focus on at a time, and I want that not just for the benefit of the README itself, but the person's experience as they use the library, which is going to be a lot of me and a lot of people I work with closely. So in some ways you could say, oh, maybe it's not really that important because it's high touch, but I don't want it to be high touch. Okay, anyway, I've got that. I'll update that to have an await. So there's two steps here. The first step is you're going to authenticate the user, and this is basically, well, it does actually set a cookie, and it gives back the user information or the claims. So the technical term is claims, and so this could be information like email, phone number, name, username, nickname, stuff like that. But claims is just the technical term for what goes into a token. And so here what we're doing is we're grabbing the claims when the user logs in, and then unlike something like Passport where the example is, oh, you're going to fetch from the database every single time. If you don't need to fetch from the database, if you have a very tiny amount of information that's just a couple of properties, an account, a role, the username, some stuff like that, you don't need to fetch it from the database. You just get it in the token. And so that's where this is a little bit different, is there's only one place where you're doing this potential database access. I mean, you could do it somewhere else too once the middleware gets further along, but at that point it's outside of the responsibility of the middleware. You don't need to indicate how you find something in every single strategy. You kind of just consolidate the user into one place. And then the second part, so all of this is just handling that authentication bit. And the second part here is that what you'd use in any application. So you can kind of have this part as your single sign-on, and then use this part in any in any application that you're creating. And it just needs to know the issuer of the token so that it can go look it up. That's what this well-known is for. And so this would be used in the original application if it has any API routes, if it's anything more than SSO, single sign-on, as well as being used in other Node applications. And it's very thin. I mean, if I were to show you what the middleware looks like, it's about this long. You just verify a JWT and grab the key from the issuer as part of that verification process is all it's doing. Anyway, so I'm just going to scroll through here and see what still looks ugly. And this is longer, but it's less ugly now. It makes sense. I mean, like, to me, this now feels like a better example. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think just this change here makes it feel less busy. So there's more going on in terms of, okay, you might find the user by their username and password. You might find the user by their email. But you don't have as much going on in terms of just these little bits that need to be there aren't gunking up the way. So it looks like I may have more or less finished the documentation update. I just need to add that away. Oh, and it looks like here this needs to be updated too. So I'll go do that real quick. Just kind of scrolling through the documentation, figuring out where I still have some updates to make. Lukewarm, just like I like it. I get this tea. It's called Sweet and Spicy by Good Earth, and it's basically herbal cinnamon tea, and so it's got sweetness to it even though there's no sugar in it. So I have that before that's kind of the first thing I do. Hold on, let me think here. I'm looking for this part, session middleware equals, what is it? Notify. Okay, let me go to notify. Anyway, one of the first things I do when I wake up is I have about 1 liter of water. And then I do a short 2 to 4 minute exercise. And then after that, I have my tea. But today I was on a crunch, so I didn't have the tea yet. Okay, notify function. Here we go. Require. We don't need the secret here anymore. We get to move this stuff out. Git claims, oops, gets to sit like this. Oh, okay, cool. So this is just API example anyway. And then we're going to do OIDC and pass in this bit here. Again, it's completely aesthetic, and I think we could do some, I feel like an API should not just be aesthetic. So I think we could do some things like set the marker for whether or not to conditionally load this part of the middleware at all based on this function being called. Because I don't like things to be smoke and mirrors, and if it's good enough to separate the options, it's probably good enough to separate something else as well. I don't know if smoke and mirrors is the right term, but form ever follows function. That's my motto. So I don't think that you should... I'm very much against things just looking cool. If it looks cool, there should be a reason that it looks cool. And so sometimes that reason makes people feel better, and I guess that's a valid reason. But anyway, whoops, there we go. So I'm going to move this here. I don't have any options for credentials. I guess I could have a check password function that I put in there. Well, I don't really want to do that. I think that's really just up to the user. I think I'm trying to keep the level of abstraction here very minimal, meaning the distance between the code that you write and the code that does the stuff. I want this layer to be very thin so that, for example, one of the complaints that the live code review session didn't get posted yet because it was not streamed live. It was just recorded because the way that Google Meet and OBS seem to fight with one another when they're both publishing at the same time. But one of the things that we both agreed that we don't like about Passport, for example, is that there's too much abstraction. There's too many layers of functions calling functions, and this is pretty thin in terms of its surface area. You don't, if you needed to trace through, okay, where does this function get called? There's fewer places to trace. And I could clean up the internal code so there's even fewer places in the internal code, but for right now it's all right. Anyway, let me get back to making these updates here. So what are we going to do? We're going to pass that into a use. So basically, I mean, it's just the same thing that we're showing before. I'm just showing an overview of the API in this, I think is really all I'm doing. So and I am going to go add those awaits. So the thing that I need to do that requires it to be asynchronous is dealing with the public-private key pair. Basically, the method to process them is asynchronous, and so that bubbles up. If you pass in a private key and all it needs to do is be parsed from the JSON web key format, the JWK format, it doesn't need to be asynchronous. But since this could handle PEM format or JWK format, or you could just pass in null and have it generate an ephemeral key for testing and stuff, it does need to be asynchronous. So let me see if there's any other place where I've got that router in there and that well-known. I just need to make sure those are updated. And again, feel free to ask questions at any time. I've got the, yes, hi. Hello. Yeah, I've got the comments up both on Twitch and on YouTube. So I will answer questions as I can. All right, let's scroll down a little more, see if there's anything else that looks like it needs to be cleaned up. And the thing is, you know, this is complex. I can't, there's only so much I can simplify it. And I'm kind of looking at some other libraries, particularly Passport, to try to see, okay, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. It is very complex. How do they make it less complex? I want this to communicate fairly easily. I think this notify function is actually doing a pretty good job. And then the store function. I did not mention the store function. Okay, so we've got notify. I think I'll put store first because store is just get and set. That's all it is. There's not much to it. This one I think actually needs, it might need a little bit more because let's see, is the JWS, I didn't put the JWS down there. This should be, there was something where I needed more information. I can't remember what it was, but there's one of these that's missing something. I guess I'll get around to it. Probably not right now, but later. My favorite languages are Go, JavaScript, and Rust, and I prefer a simpler form of JavaScript than. So basically, I'm going to bring up a meme real quick. There's a book called JavaScript: The Good Parts, and yeah, here we go. This is it. So there's JavaScript, which the language has only gotten bigger. It must be twice as big now if you were to write this same definitive guide. And then there's the stuff that you need to know to get work done. And so I still kind of follow this philosophy of trying to use less of JavaScript because it's really like 4 or 5 languages in one because it's been through a committee. But Go is a very simple language. It's probably the smallest of all the languages that I use, but it has the largest standard library. So it's the quickest to learn, and it has the most kind of batteries included type features. So Golang is definitely my favorite. And it's just really smart guys. I mean, a lot of these languages are made by people while they're in college, and it's not that they're not smart, it's that they're inexperienced. And when you have 15, 20 years of experience, you learn from your mistakes and the mistakes of others and the things that you see repeated over and over again. And I think Go does a really good job of that. Okay, let me see here. I think all of this is actually documented pretty well. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking to rename this from rec.user to rec.claims, but I think for point 9 I'm going to leave it as rec.user and see if there's complaints or confusion about that. Because technically, you might want to have a middleware you add where you take the claims and then go look up other details about the user. But the two, if you compare to Passport, rec.claims is rec.user, or would be. The claims are the user. It's what details do you want to be ever present about the user. Okay, now we're down into the API area. So I think what this needs that it's missing is, let's see, are we in the whip branch here? It looks like we are. Okay, yeah. So the bit that's missing, maybe it should have a little bit more documentation like this. Because that looks pretty decent. But it's definitely missing the store. So I'm going to add that in because we know that that's something that must exist. Store for verification. The store is a simple key value store. You could use any database, a file, or use the default in memory if you're developing locally. So anytime you're doing production, you should always basically run 2 instances, because there's lots of stuff like this where if you do anything in memory, it's going to come back to bite you. It will never not come back to bite you to do something in memory. So even in this case, well, I mean, this is immediately going into an environment where there are a couple of instances. So the store needs to be provided. It can't be in memory, because basically, if one part of the request response cycle ends up being load balanced to one server and another part, some 30 seconds goes on, the connection drops and then a new connection is made when the next part of the request response cycle through this authentication flow happens, goes to a different server. If it's in memory, then it's going to fail. It's not going to be able to look up the details to verify the challenge, especially if it's happening on 2 devices. Like talked about this whole time, that's one of the benefits here is you could get the verification link on your phone and click, verify from email on your phone, and then you should be logged in on your desktop. So it's very important that you plan ahead for that you don't ever, you don't fail to plan for something running on 2 instances. I mean, a lot of the development stuff, it's fine, but you need to have some sort of plugin like we have here. Like, I'll show later where this actually was, but yeah, it's right here. So you can pass in a store, or you can use the default memory store, but the option needs to be there. Anyway, Let me go take a look at what I did for this and kind of try to do something similar. So store just needs to do get, and then, okay, it needs to be async, so it needs to return a promise. And then I'm just going to say opaque key, or just key. And then I'll just note here, what the store stores, or let's see, the store keeps track of state information for the challenge verification. The values are intended to be opaque. You can, let's see, is the value key, let's say it like this. And I saw you have a question I'll get to in just a second. Key or comment, I didn't look to see what it was yet. A string identifier. And then value is a JSON object. We might be better off to make this a little bit more opaque, because at that level you do have to stringify and parse on the other end. I'm going to leave it like that for now. You should stringify this. Yeah, that should work. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to put there. I think that's all that it is. Let me go check where am I using store. Yeah, let's see. Store equals just set and get. Whoops. That's it. Okay, let me take a look here. Just one question more. How long is the stream going to be? Because I have to go for like 20 minutes. Well, you might already be gone, but I'm going to be streaming, I don't know. It's either until 9 or until I get this bit done. So we'll see. Doing documentation, and then I'm doing updating the tests. I think we're pretty much there with the documentation. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, good enough. All right. And, you know, if you want to, you know, watch, of course, obviously, follow and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube. And if down in the doobly-doo is all the linky-doos. So check down there. And I also, on the Beyond Code channel, I haven't been doing it recently because I've been consumed with this project, but I do kind of shorter 15 in the realm. I try to keep it in the realm of 15. Sometimes it goes into 30, but depends on the topic. But I do shorter videos on learning to program as well. My voice is really strange this morning. I guess I haven't woken up yet. So whip, squash me. Docs. Okay. I'm going to call that good. And then let me go ahead and run the tests here that I have. Yay, everything passes. That's amazing. Amazemagorical. Okay, so with that, it is time to update these other tests. And let me see what I can do here. I've never gotten into any of the testing frameworks, primarily because none of them are very JavaScripty. All of the quote-unquote JavaScript test frameworks, or at least for the past several years, I think there are one or two new ones that are actually more ergonomic for a JavaScript developer, but they started out being people in the Ruby community coming over and writing JavaScript test frameworks, and they just sucked. They were great in terms of they were like Ruby, but they sucked in terms of they weren't like JavaScript, and JavaScript is different. It's a different beast. And nowadays that we have promises and async await are all standardized, I think that, again, the test framework needs to look different. It needs to be ergonomic to those patterns. Okay. So, and I just don't know. I mean, I could throw more functions in here because I basically have this one long thing where I just number things and it's just doing the same stuff over and over again and then checking the results. So, and either I'm expecting an error or I'm checking the data. And I could add a lot of ceremony on this. I mean, a lot of these need to be run sequentially. They're more integration tests, not unit tests. So I could add more ceremony on these, and yeah, it'd be easier to read. And so maybe I will, because I don't know. But anyway, so no, I mean, like, this doesn't look as clean as even a bad JavaScript testing framework, but it does what it needs to do. It just runs through the file and it just executes one request after another and tests for the error state and tests for the success state. So anyway, I just came in here because I'm thinking, how do I want to approach this? And I think basically the helper functions, I want them the same. So maybe it's time to move those out into their own thing. For right now, I'm going to avoid abstracting this. And what are we going to be working on in this particular piece? So we do need to do... I guess I'm going to call this OIDC, but I don't know if we're actually going to test the OIDC. Am I going to use the Google test? Maybe I am. I've got a Google token that I kept that's just a junk demo token. Well, I don't know if it'll validate anymore. Because I think that Google rotates their keys every so often. They only cache them for so long. So I don't know if that token's even actually good anymore. But anyway, I'm going to copy over from test.sh, and we're just going to convert this bash into JavaScript. So here we go. I'm going to open a comment block. I'm going to paste everything in, go down to the bottom, close the comment block, and then just work basically one line at a time. I am going to go over back to my other test. I'm just going to copy one of them. Let's see, we got a main function. Yeah, I'm going to copy a little bit more of the boilerplate here. Yeah. So I'm going to copy this bit of boilerplate that goes at the end. And I'm going to copy like the first function or so inside of my main function. And again, if I've wanted to make my own testing framework for a while. I just don't know how to go about it. I just feel like, I don't know. It's, complain about something, but then I don't have a better solution. So, oh well. Okay, we're just going to go with this. I'm just going to copy this bit over. And then I'll copy the first test over, and then I will run the tests to see that the tests work. Okay, so I don't really want to do the hello test. That's not really important. Let's see, log out. Oh, bother. Okay, there's something I forgot about this. I have to have a cookie handler. I don't know if I added that to root request. There we go. I'm going to go check the code and see. Do I have anything to actually handle cookies? I don't think I do. Yeah, cookies was something that request didn't do particularly well. It was just awkward about them. One of my common complaints is when, for some sort of format like cookies, you should have a stringifier, meaning that it can serialize, and a parser, meaning it can deserialize, and they should work with one another. So the format that it serializes to should be the format that it can parse. And that was not the case. I had trouble. I had to like dig into lower levels to get that working back in the old request days. And I made root request to be basically a modern drop-in replacement. But there are some things that it doesn't handle, like things that I didn't have to deal with. And typically when you're dealing with APIs, you don't deal with cookies. But in this particular case, cookies are important, so I need to find a solution to that. So I'm going to look at the request documentation. Bless me. And I'm going to check and see. Oops, cookie jar. Remember cookies. Tough cookie file store. Oops, go back. What happened there? Okay. I'm going to go take a look at Tough cookie file store. Let's see if this is something I can use. Because I know that after my frustrations with it, I don't know, but I seem to remember that sometime after my frustrations with it, there were updates made because other people had similar frustrations, so that it would work a little simpler. Okay, cookie jar and cookie file store. New cookie jar. Cookie.parse. So we should be able to get this from set cookie. Set cookie, cookie. Yeah. It's not a whole lot of documentation. So all this does. Okay, so this is just the file store. Oh, Salesforce. Interesting. Huh. Let's see if it looks any better than it used to. Tough.cookie, cookie.parse, header. What's header? Cookie.toString equals header. Okay, so it looks like the parse and the toString. It's okay. Cookie.value. Cookie jar, set cookie. Ugh. Do we still have to have callbacks? There's got to be like a promise cookie library. I mean, you can wrap that in a promise. It's not like it's hard. Got util.promisify. Okay, get cookies, cookies.join. All right, this looks pretty decent. It's so easy. I want to see a little bit more of an example here. Okay, headers, set cookie, map. All right. Ugh. I hate it when people do stuff like this in their documentation or any sort of example. It's missing the brackets, and I just you should always put the brackets. There's no harm in putting the brackets, and it makes your code resilient because somebody's going to come in, somebody's going to copy and paste this example, and then they're going to go and they're going to add a new line, and they're going to put something here, and then, well, thankfully in this particular case, their code shouldn't compile after that, or the code should have a syntax error. But like, don't do things that are so easy to screw up. Just put the brackets, you know. Stop trying to be Ruby or Python or whatever it is they're trying to be. Okay, instance of array. This looks right. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I need to find something else to deal with this with cookies, or maybe I just need to accept that it's going to be in bash right now until I can have a better look at this. Let's see, npm cookie. All right, this is server side. Oh, okay, that's right, because that's what's in Express. Okay, so I think what I want to do right now is actually, I'm going to abandon this for the moment because it's a little bit more than I wanted to take on, or was expecting to take on. I could take some of the tests in there, for sure, because I can just check to see if the cookie is set. And I could potentially say if the cookie is set, then put the cookie back. Yeah, okay. But I should just like run this and make sure that the tests still pass in general. So I'm going to do that. Let's see that the cookies test in general, or pass in general. Okay, we got something that didn't work out here. Let's me expecting new token, internal server error. All right, let's go check that out. See, this is giving back an ID token. Yep. Recent cookies. Expecting new token. Let's go take a look at what that's about. Okay. All right, so this one, this may no longer work. I'm going to check on this. And I don't remember if my little test database here, is this actually using email address? Yes, it is. Okay. So I'm going to go check this out. Gosh, I'm getting kind of hungry. Yeah, I didn't sleep as well as I would have liked last night. I'm a little tired. I'm a little hungry. I might need a little pick-me-up at some point in the near future. Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the part where username password is checked. So let's look for credentials. Nope, let's look for the switch statement. Here we go. Get claims. Okay. So email rect.body and rect.user, return some claims. So I'm just going to put some debug logging in here. Call that debug. And again, I use the actual .debug when there's, not when I'm in the middle of debugging, but when there's an option for printing out more verbose information. And then I'll use console.debug. I use console.log for things I intend to get rid of. If I intend to keep it in the program, then it'll be console.info or console.error or console.debug. And that's just the thing that I do. All right, so we want to debug user. All right, let's see what happens when we run this. All right, what do we get to? Okay, so here's something that I did not expect. Lib session 46, so I'm going to deal with that problem first. Let's see. That's good. That's good that that got caught, I suppose. Verify ops. Looks like that was missing from somewhere. Verify session. Ah, yes, because I updated this. This before was just doing decoding because the cookie's already verified. And then later I decided, oh, I need to add this in, but then I have to have the verify ops. So let's see, verify session. That's why I didn't finish that out. Because now I gotta pass some information from somewhere to somewhere else. But this shouldn't be very hard. Let me go check around where this is being used, where these verify ops come from. Verify, oh, IDC token. Okay, verify ops, issuer. So basically, if I move this, let's see, verify session. Okay, it's only used there, so I can move this into a helper function inside of where I've got my other helper functions. Yep, verify ID token, blah, 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 lapa, lapa, lapa. So let me move this function down in kind of my big constructor, so to say. And then I can put in issuer there. That should work. Are we up to ES11 now? Whoops, that's not. Where's my JS HintRC? Huh. Whoops, not what I wanted. Let's go back. Okay. Let issuer equals ish. Cool. I can call it by other name. Sign cookies, refresh token. All right. So that should solve one problem. Let's see, did it solve it? Let me clear this out and restart from scratch. And let me run this. All right, this looks better. Huh. That almost seems like for some reason it didn't restart last time. All right, so we got debug user. That's looking good. Yeah, all coming out. All right, unexpected error, unauthorized for role. And actually, that is not even the error because, whoops, this has changed ever so slightly. Oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to do that. npm install save at latest. So we had a chat about this, and now his errors are going to the express error handler rather than being handled in place. So I just needed to get the latest version of his library, and it looks like, okay, cannot read property includes of undefined, and that is because needs user.role to exist. I think roles, user.roles has to exist. Okay, I'm going to double check where that's coming from. Just looking for something that's in my code. Unfortunately, this stack trace is not very helpful because it is not landing in my code. I think I know where it's coming from though. I'm just going to take a look at this top file over here. Yeah, user.roles.includes. That's the problem. So I've got a rec.user. I don't have rec.user.roles. So in my demo app here, let's see where there's rec.user. Okay, right about, I guess here, I need to be creating something that adds roles onto a user. So rec res next, and then rec.user.roles, oops. If not rec.user.roles, rec.user.roles equals, I think that it might be good. I'm going to suggest to him that if roles does not exist, then it's a no-fly, rather than it's saying it's an undefined property, because basically this is what we need to do. Make it an array and then say if. I do use rec.user.role singular, but his library requires roles plural. And the other thing is that his library it says, for example, like a user or an admin might be able to do this. And so it's an array, but I don't know if that's necessary for the what's going on here? Anyway. Okay, there we are. Let's see if now the tests pass. And with Bash, you know, passing tests is basically, it runs to the end. Okay, token inspect. So I might have removed the inspect URL. Okay, again, cannot read roles of undefined. Let's do this. If not rec.user. Now, I'm not so sure I like that. Because I don't want to, I'd rather have user be empty. Well, hello, welcome back. I don't know anything about the olive green mono font. No. But I don't know why people are using NeoVim still, because it seems like since 20, I don't know, was it like 20 or 15 or so? When Vim 8 came out, I think Vim 8 had the things that people were complaining that Vim was missing, the reason they created NeoVim. So I don't even really know why. I just use Vim because, I guess because it's what I always used, and I don't have the problems with it that make me feel like I need to switch. The one thing that I didn't like about it was the package management, but they added that in Vim 8. And so now I don't have to use any package managers. I just git clone and boom, put it in the folder. I don't use pathogen or any of that anymore. But if you are interested in fonts, I would say this. I'll recommend, I'm just going to paste this in the chat real quick. Sorry, this is completely unrelated, but I answer unrelated questions sometimes. So this is like fonts plus icons for your terminal. It's called Nerd Font. And then ls plus icons is called LSD. So I put that in the YouTube chat. I'll copy it over in just a second here too. You are welcome. So now I'm copying over to Twitch chat. There you go. So webinstall.dev is a project that my buddy Ryan and I run. Oh, and by the way, thumbs up is a great way to say thank you. I don't ask for those often enough while I'm streaming, and so I don't get them often enough, but it's appreciated. Anyway, a buddy of mine, Ryan, and I run webinstall.dev, and it's basically tools for, well, it's for us, but also for newer developers to just get up and running quickly with stuff. And the Vim Essentials you might want to check out as well. This is now completely cold. Still tastes great though. In fact, I've done the iced version of this and I love it. Okay, wait, why did I do not? That's not what I meant to do. Okay, if not rec.user, make rec.user. This is going to be a to-do. Bad idea. But maybe I could do this another way also. Whatever. Let's run the test. Does it get all the way to the end? Expecting error. Good. Okay. Expected auth error, got an auth error. It looks like everything is working as expected. Okay. Do I want to try to deal with the cookie stuff? Maybe a tiny bit. Let me look at that cookie thing once more. Okay, but anyway, I should go ahead. Let's see. I'll do lent bump ES version to 11. Oh, that's so cool to say. We're going to take it to 11. For I forget what this is. Yeah, just bump it to 11. I forget what it's called when you do the question mark operator. Question mark operator is kind of cool. Only a few languages have it, but I wish more did. There's two ways I've seen it used. One is for errors, and the other is for whether or not something exists in a path. They're kind of different use cases, but they both work reasonably well. Okay, I don't need that debug in there anymore. Debug, gone. Do I have any other console.logs hanging out here? Strategy. Meh. That can stay there, I guess. Oh, I do need to add some documentation here. Let's see, what other to-dos do I still have left? I'm going to work on this some today that I'm not going to be streaming, but I'm just going to be doing integration with the code that I'm writing this for. And I'll come back and maybe do an overview. But there'll be a couple of changes that are going to be emergent as I learn the requirements better. Okay, so that we're putting in there. To do, bad idea. Yes, yes indeed. We moved the verify session. That's good. We updated the authorization library, which I'm going to go make a comment on that. Oh, good. We got rid of Lodash there. I love it when Lodash goes away. I just don't like utility libraries because they're big and they're bloated, and typically what you need them for is something that you could have in a cheat sheet for yourself and just copy and paste it in when you need it. Thank you. He said I liked the video. So let's see. And this one, I want to change this from pass. Now, I kind of like, if it's user, it's user. So user versus username, and pass versus password, and I like to use them synonymously. So user and pass, or username and password. But I am going to go update in here body.password. Let's see. I don't think I need to do if rec.body. I'm pretty sure that's always going to be there. I guess I'll find out in a minute. But let's see. I don't want to implement this. Let's see. If development is not, there we go. Yeah, that's right. To do, check password. For right now, for testing, we'll just let it slide. So I will, in another video, show how to properly salt, hash, and compare a password. Let me write that down. Where's my pen? I'll put it in my notes that I have up here. So to-do item, salt, hash, store, password. There's a couple different strategies we could use for that, but I think I'll just show a very simple one. Because at the end of the day, passwords are simply insecure, and I don't know that there's much you can do to change that. Okay, and good old Thunderbolt. All my monitors are blinking on and off. Okay. Let's go back to here. So, unless you're paying $100 for a stupid little Thunderbolt cable, it's not going to be actually truly rated for Thunderbolt. So every once in a while, the Thunderbolt cable that is connecting between some of the monitors just goes wonky for a few seconds and everything goes blank and then comes back. A lot of on Amazon say they're Thunderbolt compatible. My suggestion would be stick to ones that are basically 6 inches long, because you get any longer than that and you'll be lucky if they work at all, and then you just have to return them. But they'll say USB 4 and Thunderbolt compatible, or USB 3, Thunderbolt 3 compatible. No, they're not. Only the ones that cost like $100 work. Well, actually, I haven't tested those, so I don't know that they work. But I know the ones that are in the $10 to $20 price range, they don't work. Well, they sometimes work well enough, which this does. I mean, it happens to me a couple times a week. What just happened? I don't know if you actually saw that in the stream, but anyway, let me get back on track here. So I think I'm in a good place to just add all of these things. Just add star.js star lib test.sh. Indeed. I do not want to send.js. That was just a junk file. All right, what am I actually doing this? I think I'm just updating for tests. Updates to pass original tests. Okay. Let's see. I've got another half hour that I can spend on this. I kind of accomplished my goal realistically. Well, I think the next thing I should do, because I do want to dig into the cookie thing, but I think I'll dig into that later and maybe off screen, because I don't know. Maybe it'd be cool to watch. Let me know. Let me know what you think if you want to watch me do the research on this cookie thing and figure out how to implement a cookie library in my request library. But that's kind of something where it's been done in other libraries. I just like to have my own libraries for things, because over the years I just collect them, and I don't use a lot of the libraries that are the super popular ones, because it's like I either got to debug my code or I got to debug their code. And when I was younger, I preferred to use other people's libraries because everybody else was smarter than me, and I learned a lot. And then as I got older and more experienced, I just started using my own libraries for everything, because they're simpler and smaller and more well contained. And if I can write good documentation for them, like I have for many of the ones that I've shown throughout this series, and I have good examples, then I can feel good about it. If I can't do those things, then I should use somebody else's. Anyway, so the last little bit, I think it's going to go back to the browser pieces and make sure that that is working as expected. There's this main.js. I think I wanted to refactor a little bit out into basically a router. So I'm going to check the query string stuff and then have it call either the one function or the other in terms of, yeah, these are both called main right now and they're auto invoking. But I think, because I have one for the OIDC stuff that I created originally, and the other is for the Magic Link stuff that I did later. Let me close out of these tabs here. Just get rid of all this stuff. Leave my cheat sheet open. All right. Oh, and then this, yeah. So this flow, I'm fairly certain, is still going to work just fine. I mean, it should. I probably should have refreshed that. Did I refresh that? Anyway, let's open this up. Remember me. Great. It's safe to close the tab. Verified. Safe to close this window. Cool. So that whole process went through. The thing that I don't think worked, and I do want to figure out why, is it says that it couldn't do a get. And I think that's because in this method I did not attach the roles or the role. Let me see here. Cannot read roles of undefined. That doesn't make sense. Oh, we need to go further down here. What is this? So it issued a 500, but I don't see what it is. Let me just cancel out that entirely, start this back up again. And then it did actually, I have this link presented on the screen for the purposes of being able to run the test quicker, but it did actually send the link to my email. And when development mode is not enabled, then the secret does not get sent back. But, oh, I also made these tokens, I think I discussed this earlier, but I made them so that you could either click on the link or when we do the emails for this for real, we can, you know, just, it could be something the person could type in. And I still feel like with the amount of entropy that that gives us and how short the time frame is, I mean, and you see this anyway. Well, not as the primary method of authentication. I feel like this is, I need to think about it a little bit more, but I feel that having a token with this much entropy is actually good enough for primary authentication. Like, I mean, it's only 8 characters. How many sites only require an 8-character password anyway? But it's actually random. It's not base 64, so it's not uppercase and lowercase, because I figured that would be a little bit too difficult for people to manage in terms of letters that might look similar or that sort of thing. So, and just, you know, people have a hard time with things. But I think, you know, they could type in, you know, 8 or 9 characters, either 4 in 2 parts or 3 in 3 parts. Anyway, I might go more into that later. I've gone into it previously. But okay, what we need to figure out is why did this bit fail? Or did it even fail? It failed up here. Okay, that's probably just fine. Except that I don't know why it would be an internal server error. I'm going to hit refresh again. I'm going to clear out everything. We're going to go to the application tab. I'm going to say clear site data. I don't need to worry about third-party cookies in this case. I don't believe there are any. If they are, it's by mistake. I'm going to refresh. Good. Bad request just means there's no cookie. Great. That's exactly as it should be. So hit next here. All right. What are we seeing so far? I'm going to open this up. Click confirm. Okay. And then do we get any? No errors. Okay, good. Wait. Were those? I'm a little confused because I'm seeing duplicate here. All right, so now if we refresh this, you win. Check for your token. There was an error. It's okay. This is the part that I wanted to get to, because the demo is broken a little bit, and I don't understand quite why. Cannot read includes of undefined. But why? So refresh. Refresh, I don't think that refresh is protected. I think, okay, this is where the error is coming from. So let me go look at API dummy here. Also, I'll take a look for any more comments. Do you know a plugin that is named indent lines? No. But if we're talking about Vim, again, I'll link here, web install.dev vim essentials. This has some stuff called Vim whitespace, and if you look at the actual config file for that, so the Vim essentials will link to Vim whitespace, and if you look at the actual config file for that, you'll see how you can set up whitespace indentation in Vim. Okay, what is going on? Why are my monitors flaking out on me? That's very rare that it happens, and then it just happened twice. I must have moved something recently, and now the cable is loose or something. All right, where did my... Everything's gone. Everything's hidden away. Bring back my code window. I'll have to check into that later. Yeah, all of my monitors just went jumble and rearranged. Oops. Sorry. Let me get my bearings again here. Yeah. Anyway, with regards to white spacing, check out the link from Vim Essentials to Vim Whitespace, and you'll see what the config looks like that it will set you up with, which you may not like. You might want to do 2 instead of 4. Nobody should be doing 8. That's redonkulous. Straight up redonkulous. Okay. And that's one of my problems, actually, is I should go set this to 2. I'll go do that right now. I should do it just for... Oops. White space. I should have it do it just for JavaScript. There is a way to do that, because I like some of my other code to be 4 spaces. But there we go. Now my indentation will be working properly rather than me having to save every time and let Prettier run. Okay. Sorry, today I'm a little bit foggy-headed anyway. Like I said, I didn't sleep very well last night. Okay, so I've got this. What I'm trying to figure out is why we get this 500, and I'm looking back at this right here. Cannot read property includes. I know where that's coming from. I need to look at the dummy route. All right, let me go back to the dummy route. API dummy. Nope, I don't want to do it in here. Whoops. Huh. I don't know what that's actually. Huh? Don't know what's going on there. All right, it's looking for roles. And API authenticate happens before it gets here. Oh, whoops. This is in the wrong place. Oopsies. That should be there. So that previous one was Rongo Bongo. And then let's go see where that switch statement was, where I'm handling the different things. And I say get claims. Do I actually have, let me look at my fake database here. Do I actually even have, yeah, I do have roles that go onto the account. Okay, so it's not just role. So in the general case, I shouldn't need that thing that I just gave. Let's see, is the token being sent here? Request headers, authorization bearer. Let's inspect that token and make sure that it looks correct. I think it's just missing roles here, which technically, according to my belief, roles should go in an access token, not an ID token, not generically in a refresh token or things like that. That should be looked up every time, but for the sake of this little demonstration, let me do this. Key pairs, inspect, and what do we have in here? Claims, No roles. All right. That is our problem. So let me try this again now that I made that change. Again, I'll show that change. I think this was already here. I just uncommented it. And get access claims. I don't really like that way of looking at it. What this really should be is just, I should have this function that looks at, this is emulating, like, you know, that situation you get when if you log into YouTube and you have multiple channels, which I guess most people don't, but you've probably logged into something before. You have multiple accounts of it, you know, maybe Google login and you've got the work account and your personal account. It asks you which one you want. So I'm kind of emulating that here, which is actually part of the real use case that I have with doing this user.account stuff. So in the fake database file that I have, I give user access to a particular account, and this is doing that logic, and I'll actually just copy and paste some of the stuff. And then here, yeah, access claims has roles. Okay, so that's what I should do in the other one as well. So this is doing the exchange. So how did that other one get that ID token? Oh, it got it from, all right, I know what's going on. Here we go. Oh, this is part of the library I need to document. I need to go into the documentation and make sure that's taken care of. I did not document what get claims should receive and return. All right, technically that's actually my nickname, not my true first name. Maybe I'll update that later. But anyway, I think now if I redo this, congrats, you win a token. It didn't give me the same. Okay, let's log out. Refresh. Okay, great. So let's sign back in, go through this verification process, refresh. I got my token. Oh, good. No problems. Except this is not showing that. Was it a different window? Dummies. User does not have required role. Okay, well, what role does the user have? Let me go check. All right, refresh, granted a token. There was no exchange. Oh, yeah, okay. I know what's going on here. Yes. All right. Well, anyway, it's time for me to go. I am going to do a little bit off camera and then catch up on this later. So with that, sorry for being a little bit abrupt, but there's some other things that I need to take care of. So y'all have a great day. I'll be back on tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be back on later tonight, but if you got any questions or anything, leave them in the comments. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And the next bit, like I said, I'm going to be doing some stuff where I'm just integrating this with another project. So there's going to be some things that I do off camera. I'll review them when I come back, and I'll catch you later. Adios.